Contract law in ancient Japan. Contract law in ancient Japan, evolving through various historical periods, was influenced by indigenous customs, Chinese legal traditions, and later, European legal concepts. The development of Japanese contract law before the Meiji Restoration, 1868, reflects a blend of these influences, adapting to Japan's unique social, political, and economic context. Indigenous practices and Chinese influence. Initially, Japan's legal system was based on clan-based customs and oral agreements, with a strong emphasis on social harmony and community norms. With the introduction of Chinese culture and legal systems in the Asuka, 538-710, and Nara, 710-794, periods, Japan began to incorporate Confucian and Buddhist principles, along with elements of the Tang Code, into its legal framework. This included more formalized approaches to contracts and legal documentation. Heian period to the Edo period. During the Heian period, 794-185, Japan's legal system continued to evolve, with the imperial court attempting to codify laws, including those affecting contracts. However, the actual enforcement of these laws often depended on the power and influence of the parties involved. Kamakura, 185-333, and Muromachi, 336-573, period saw the rise of military governments, shogunates, and the samurai class, leading to a more decentralized form of governance. Contractual agreements during these times were often enforced through local customs and the authority of feudal lords, rather than a centralized legal system. Edo period, 1603-1868, under the Tokugawa shogunate, marked a significant development in Japan's legal system, including contract law. The shogunate established a more centralized governance structure and issued legal codes that affected commercial and social life. Contracts became more formalized, with documentation practices influenced by Confucian ethics and the need for order and stability. Types of contracts. Contracts in ancient and feudal Japan covered various aspects of social and economic life, including land transactions. Agrarian society necessitated clear agreements on land ownership, tenure, and usage, often regulated by feudal lords. Commercial transactions. With the growth of commerce, especially during the Edo period, merchants and traders developed sophisticated methods of creating and enforcing contracts, including credit instruments and guild regulations. Labor agreements. Feudal obligations and later, employment agreements in urban areas, were formalized through contracts specifying terms of service and compensation. Enforcement and dispute resolution. Dispute resolution in ancient Japan often relied on mediation and arbitration within communities or by feudal lords. The emphasis was on restoring harmony rather than strict legal adjudication. However, by the Edo period, there were more formalized legal procedures, and the shogunate established courts to handle disputes, including those arising from contracts. Influence of Confucianism and Buddhism. Confucian and Buddhist principles influenced Japanese contract law, emphasizing moral obligations, fairness, and the maintenance of social order. Contracts were not merely legal instruments but were also seen within the context of ethical and social responsibilities. Contract law in ancient Japan developed through a synthesis of indigenous practices, Chinese legal influence, and the unique socio-political landscape of Japan. While formal legal codes and procedures evolved, especially during the Edo period, the underlying principles of social harmony, moral obligation, and community norms remained central to the understanding and enforcement of contracts. This foundation set the stage for the modernization of Japanese law during the Meiji Restoration and beyond, as Japan began to incorporate Western legal concepts.